You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. It's time to wake up with the Morning Boys on Worldwide Sports Radio Network. And here's your host, Ryan Hickey.
Good Monday morning and welcome in to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. It is the Morning Boys with your host, Ryan Hickey, right here on this June 1st. We have flipped the calendar to June, thankfully. Hopefully the month of June has any sort of positivity here, because it feels like the first 5 months of 2020 have only continued to snowball, only have continued to get worse. And just when you think, really, it feels like this year can't get any worse. This year really, with everything that's happened so far, starting with Kobe Bryant's tragic death, and obviously thinking that's just obviously a basketball icon, someone that's now using his platform for good, for giving back, for helping young athletes, for growing the game of basketball, for growing the game of women's basketball. For him to pass away at such a young age, tragic, and obviously that started just a snowball effect. That's continued with murder hornets, that's continued with coronavirus, that's continued with unemployment, that's continued with a tanking economy. And now, obviously, we have come to really the breaking point here in this country, obviously, with the death and really the murder of George Floyd this time last week in Minneapolis at the hands of a Minneapolis police officer. That has sparked outrage, I think constructive anger for the most part as well, and really starting to bring a message across the country that I think has gotten lost, has gotten maybe ignored, or because of the way the world is right now with the news cycle basically constantly churning, constantly going from the biggest story to the biggest story to the biggest story, to where nothing really has a shelf life anymore. I think now that, it takes a pandemic, it takes us being basically stuck at home with no other distractions to kind of realize what's going on in the world. And maybe, just maybe, that actually will, something will change for once. The message will actually stick, it will resonate, and everyone can get on board with the same issue, because really, there is no true sides to this issue, right? I mean, we're talking about basic human rights and just the equal treatment for anyone of any different background, any different color, any different race, any different gender. It's really, just the antithesis and the basis of what it's like to be a person, not just in the world, but especially in a free country like we have in America. And obviously, like you said, you've seen protests, you've seen expressions of anger, and I think a lot of it has been constructive. A lot of it has really pushed a good message. But like we said, it's continued the entire week through cities all across the world. And that's obviously where we will start. To be very disingenuous, it'd be doing everyone in this audience a disservice if we didn't start with that. To be honest, I'm just going to say this right now. This is obviously, I just started my hosting career here, or at least got onto this platform, I should say, back in October. So this is really the first real world, non-sports kind of major life topic that I'm handling. I am more, if you want to join in with your thoughts, you're more than welcome to. You can shoot me a text. If you even are so passionate that you want to get on the air, you can text me, you can give me a call. And we can put you on if you want to comment on Facebook, Worldwide Sports Radio Network. If you want to shoot me a tweet at WWSRN_radio, or if you want to tweet me directly, Ryan_Hickey and the number 3. I'm down to talk about this, and I am going to talk about it to start, but I'm not sure how long it's going to last. Like I said, I'm just one person here, so I'm going to give you my thoughts. I'm going to give you why I think change. We're all responsible for change, no matter what your background, and at least from seeing this last week of all the events going on, there is some negativity. But I'm taking a lot of positivity out of this past week, and I'll explain to that in a second. But like I said, I'm not sure if this is something you want to talk about directly for 2 hours. I'm more than welcome to, if you want to spend the entire show discussing what needs to happen, discussing what you've seen. I have listeners from all across the country here, and obviously each city is a different experience. So if you want to give your thoughts on what you've seen, on if you participated in a protest, in a rally, and just kind of the people you talk to, more than welcome to again take this for 2 hours for sure, because I think it's very important. This is really the only thing that's going on. This is the only thing that is important, right? Sports is my career for sure. I ventured into it, and in going into a career in sports, obviously there's not a lot of positives. I'm not trying to have this be a pity party here, but I'm just trying to explain the money isn't great, the hours aren't great. But for the most part, the reason why you do it is because you're doing what you love. You're talking about something that really, you're a kid in a candy store. Right? We're talking about sports. People are paying you to talk about the games, to watch games, right? For what is an escape for a lot of people, what is a distraction for a lot of people, for what is, just a chance to relax for 3 hours to watch a game, to get away from what's going on in the real world. Those are people like myself. We get paid to venture into this industry. So it's been a blessing. But even, you have to realize now sports are at the back burner. Sports aren't important, even if they were going on right now. Obviously, not to mention there's not a lot of sports going on. So I do have some sports topics on here to talk about if, again, if the conversation isn't had, if people want a distraction, because again, that is why you come to the show. That is why you do listen to sports talk radio. That's why you watch TV shows. That's why you watch games, is for distractions going on in the real world. So we do have some sports topics. Again, if we end up getting into it, whether it's a report from ESPN's Buster Only that there are some owners in Major League Baseball that don't want to play in 2020. I have to tell you why that's going to be a major financial mistake in the long term on their front. The NBA, we've discussed the last few weeks, the NBA and their different ways they can resume the league, whether it's going right to the playoffs, whether it's having a play-in tournament, whether it's bringing all 30 teams back and, at least trying to have everyone play 72 games, to get to that regional sports network to fulfill their contracts. But now the NBA on Friday released the 4 options that they narrowed it down to. We'll discuss all 4, and we'll rank all 4 in terms of the best ideas to the worst ideas. We do have Gary Washburn. I'm excited to have him on at the end of the show at 10:40. He covers the NBA, covers the Celtics, but also is a national NBA writer for the Boston Globe. I'm really excited to have Gary on because not only obviously now do we have some ideas of NBA and how it could resume it and get his thoughts, or someone in the league, would an asterisk be necessary? What's the best, honestly, option to resume the league? Do the playoffs need changing? I think that's a discussion I want to take as well, is going forward outside of 2020, when things go back to normal, when the coronavirus hopefully is, there's a vaccine that comes out and it's all of a sudden not this virus that's gripping the nation, and we can get back to sports, we can go to games, we can really, again, put our focus, put our energy towards the teams we root for. Does the NBA need to change their playoff format? Because there's not a lot of parity in the NBA. There's 3 or 4 teams in each conference. The East, as we know, is very weak compared to the West. Does the NBA need to go to a 1 through 16 seeding sort of situation? So I want to get Gary's thoughts, and also I'm very excited to have Gary on because socially, if you're aware or unaware, one of the Celtics' young rising stars is Jaylen Brown. He is from Atlanta. He obviously plays for the Celtics, so he's up there in Boston. And over the weekend, he drove 15 hours down to Atlanta, participated, organized a peaceful protest near his neighborhood in Atlanta. He's really one of the first athletes, and a few also have followed suit in their different cities that they live in, respectively. But this is really the first time that we've seen professional athletes, not only use their platform to, show support, but actually go out there and do it. It's one thing to tweet out. You're thinking of those protesters, you're thinking of all of those out there fighting for equal rights, but it's another thing to actually put your money where your mouth is, go down there, and again, be part of the crowd, be part of the change. And that's what Jaylen Brown did. So I'd love to get Gary's thoughts again at about 10:40 or so, an hour and a half from now, give or take, to get his thoughts on just what it's like to cover someone, Jaylen, to actually have an athlete go down there and participate. I thought it was really powerful, really impactful, and again, I think really helped spread the message and really, show the message that this is something that's important and this is something that affects all of us, which is where a long-winded way, I apologize, of putting it to where I want to start here with all of us, of every different background, every different race, every different gender, being all responsible for change. It's obvious. I don't have to tell you, you've seen it, and this is just another example, but this is, again, the latest example of proof. Change has to happen in this country. And the only way change happens is when everyone is on board. And obviously, as we know, these last few years, America has been very divided. And if anything, we are growing apart. We are getting more angry with each other. And it's really impossible to talk about a lot of things in life, right? Politics, if you have one family member that's Democrat, one family member that's Republican, it's pretty hard to talk politics because guess what? Everyone is really entrenched on their side, one side or another. Everyone is passionate, which is important. Obviously, you want that. You don't want apathy, because once you have apathy, then really we're all in big trouble. So the passion is good, but it's how do we harness that passion? How can we do it in a constructive way to where discussions don't end in fights, discussions don't end in us being mad at the other person, discussions don't end in name-calling or bringing out some personal experience. We all go there, right? We all know if we're losing a battle, if we're losing an argument, we're getting frustrated. Insults, curse words, there are plenty of different ways to deflect from the actual argument to try to get your message point that you're hurt and you're trying to hurt someone else. But really, how it changed and how we all were responsible, I think, and this is kind of hopefully a summation of everything that we've all seen this last few weeks, is that really change starts and comes from empathy. Right? If you're watching, obviously you could see, if you're listening, I am, a 25-year-old white person. So I will never know what it's like to be a black person in America. I'll never have that experience, but it's important, and we have to try our best to put ourselves, to have empathy, to see what it's like to walk in someone else's shoes. Just because, for the longest time, I'll admit, the way I lived, and it's just, I would say average, grew up on Long Island, middle class, nothing crazy, just, I would say, if you say, what's an average American life, I would say that's close to what I had. But I've never had to, be fearful if a cop pulled me over, or even if I see a cop in the area. I've never been afraid. I've never had to, again, have people look at me differently because I'm a different color. So it's tough. It is tough to put ourselves in a situation of what it's like, because at least for myself growing up, you think everyone lives the way you do, but you don't know any better. If you grow up, in an area that's poor and you have to fight for what you have, you don't really know what it's like to live in a neighborhood, let's say, where it's wealthier and everything's kind of handed to you, or vice versa. But we have to somehow be able to, all of us, put ourselves in that situation to see what it's like to live on the other side. Because if not, this divide's going to continue. Nothing's going to actually change. Right? We continue to raise awareness. We continue to have protests. There's anger. There's constructive anger. But I hate to say, it's up to this point. Guess what? Nothing has changed. We've had countless incidents of African-American men, women, children being profiled, being killed. We have protests. We talk about it for a week, and then it's on to the next thing. Not everyone cares, because not everyone can put themselves in that situation to understand, wow, you know what, that could be me or you. If we were born in a different area, if we were born of different color, if we were born, different parents, what could happen? And it's tough. I really can't lie. I've never really thought about, as a white person, my impact, because as you think, if you're a different color and that, one group is upset, and we don't know what it's like to be that one group, how can we really help? It's not us. But it is us. It's all of us coming together to actually realize what's going on, to realize the injustice that's going on everywhere in the world. And this is an area that also got me, I think it's important as well, because in situations like this, obviously the police officer in Minnesota was the one who committed this crime, committed the murder. Should go to jail. We hope. Obviously, we've seen this happen before, and we've seen people get off. But it's also important to realize that racism isn't just with the police officers. It isn't just in that one department, to where it's really all of us versus the police. It's not a us versus them sort of situation. This is also what comes from change. This is how we can change. It's all of us together in one aspect, fighting for the good. It's not us versus them. It's not, activists fighting against the police. Because there's racism, again, every single walk of life. It's not just the police. Sure, we see it magnified because the police are in a position to where if you have one bad apple or one bad police officer, obviously they can do a lot more damage than, let's just say, maybe a racist store owner that just turns away people of certain colors because they don't like them. But it takes all of us to come together to recognize this change and actually do change. So whether it's people like myself recognizing really, how we can help, trying to put ourselves in the positions of those that are, have the injustice against them, those that, are facing hardships maybe because of where they were born, what their background is, the area they grew up, the situation that surrounds them. So if we can do that, I feel like that's actually where it changes. And that's why, for everything that's happened this week, for all of the negativity, taking away from a lot of the positivity, because now, at least as the week has progressed and you see a lot more looting going on, a lot more destruction going on, taking away from all the positivity that's happening. And I think it's also very important to recognize this. I'll throw this out there really quick. The people that are doing the looting, the people that are doing the rioting, the people that are going out there with the sole intent of destruction of property, looting stores to their benefit, aren't the same people that are out there protesting equal rights. It's sad. But the passion, the anger, and like we talked about with the passion, right? You need passion to have anything happen. The passion that everyone out there, all the protesters are out there during the day, all of those demonstrators are out there trying to invoke change to raise awareness of all across the cities, are doing a great, great, great job. And I applaud them, and you see everyone of all different backgrounds descending on these cities to protest and have their voice out that there is injustice out there. We need to have equal treatment of everyone from every different background, every different race, every different gender. And I truly do think, I want to talk about this in a second, that this has raised awareness, and I think change can actually happen. Then there's those people that see this anger, that see this passion, and channel for negativity. Use it as an opportunity for them to benefit. And not benefit, again, by helping the cause, by pushing social issues, and by trying to actually make a change. They use that passion, they harness that passion, that anger, to benefit only themselves. And it's not just one race, it's not just one gender, it's not just one group. Because I'm sure like you've watched a lot of the news, especially over the weekend. When the day turns to night, people come out and are only there for vengeance, only there for destruction. And it's important to realize it's white people, it's black people, it's Latinos, it's everyone there that just selfishly look at this situation all across and say, how can I gain? You know what? We're angry. We're going to use this as an excuse to go into a Gucci store, break it, and take handbags, or go into a Foot Locker and steal sneakers. You know how you can tell it's different is because, especially this was very jarring. On CNN, they had a live camera in one of the stores in Los Angeles. And it was just really at the beginning where people broke in. You know what happened? It's all organized. People were driving up in cars, getting out, running in, running out, putting the stuff in the car, driving away, going to the next store. These aren't the people that are out there trying to bring good and trying to bring change. It's two different people. So I hope that there are people who recognize that, because you see on the news, you see on social media, a lot of the protesters are being lumped in with the rioters and the looters. Completely different groups. And that's why I'm taking more positivity out of this, because you see all the good that's going on. Think about it. In each city, thousands of people across America in tons of different cities are out there together in unity, on the same page, on the same message, trying for the greater good. Right? You see all these protests, you see all these groups of people taking over the streets, going to monuments, whether it's chants, whether it's kneeling, whether it's silence. They're out there with the same message of trying to raise awareness and do good. And it's people of all different colors, genders, backgrounds. There's white people out there, there's black people out there, there's Latinos out there, there's men, there's women, all different backgrounds. Everyone is on the same page and supporting the same cause. And think about how and why that's important, because America, and like I said when I started this, America is so divisive. It's impossible to get thousands of people on the same page on anything. You can say right now, on a beautiful sunny day with not a cloud in the sky is blue. Half people would argue, half people would agree. It's impossible to get anyone, or I should say, it's possible to get such a large group of people on the same page about one issue. So I think it's positive that you see a lot of people coming out, going to rallies, speaking their mind, doing it in a positive way, and coming together and realizing this cause is something we all can get behind. No matter what color you are, if you're a white person, a black person, no matter if you've seen this injustice happen to you or not. It's important to get behind this, because this is just basic human rights. This is just really, the foundation of what America is supposed to be, the land of the free, right? Where we can do whatever we want, all partly because we have the freedom to, because we're all treated the same. We're all equal. So that's encouraging to see. Like I said, most of it's been peaceful and respectful, and I think it's also positive, because I was driving in this morning listening to the WFN. I like their morning show a lot, and they just had a police officer. Right before I got out of the car, they had a police officer call in. He just came off of a 22-hour shift. He said he went in at 9:45 yesterday morning, was just getting out now. And he said didn't say what area he was in of New York City, but discussed that he was, one of the officers on the front lines talking to protesters right there. And he only had positivity to talk about the protesters. They all were very nice. They all were respectful. They were peaceful. They were voicing their anger. They were voicing their concerns, but doing so in a constructive way to where the police officers could understand where they're coming from. Their message wasn't lost because it wasn't rooted in violence. It wasn't rooting in trying to hurt police officers, trying to attack them, trying to basically live a lawless life. It was them coming from a good place of trying to actually have change happen. And again, I think for the most part, we're all on the same page. But it does take all of us. It takes people like myself and you. And it's not just, an issue where black people have to figure out themselves. It takes all of us to change. That's how really the only way that, this country can get behind it and actually have change instilled. And I think, again, I'll finish up here. From what I've seen on social media as well, I think we all recognize what it takes to change. And I'm going to use an example here from Flint, Michigan, because there was a police sheriff in Flint, Michigan on Saturday night. He was out there with the protesters. He was talking to them, basically asking them, like, what's your goal? What can we do to help you? What can we as the police department, what can we as law enforcement do to help your cause? And he said he took his helmet off, took his baton down, and him and a lot of his unit walked and marched peacefully with the protesters, talking to them, hearing them out, and hearing how, maybe hearing some constructive criticism on how things can change, how people from a colored community, from a black community can respect the cops more, and how the cops can respect those people in those areas more. And that's really where it comes from. Respect is a two-way street. And it's not just law enforcement versus one group of people or law enforcement versus another group of people. It's all of us. We all have to respect each other. And that's one thing that's been lost these last few years and why our country's so divisive. As soon as one person disagrees with us, we all fight back. We all get angry. We all start getting defensive. And it drives a wedge, no matter what it is. I mean, I see it all the time in sports. I mean, at the end of the day, arguing over a quarterback making this amount of money or this team is better than this team, sure, it's fun, but it's not serious. It's not, it's not real. It's not a reason to get actually upset, but it happens. It's important to realize what the actual change is, and that's respect, that's empathy, seeing where the other side's coming from, seeing how the other side lives, seeing why they're so upset, putting ourselves in their shoes and realizing, you know what? Yeah, there is an issue, and before maybe you feel helpless, what can I as a white person do to help this? I'm not a police officer. I'm not someone in law enforcement. I'm not someone who, is a racist. For me, at least the longest point, for the longest time in my life, I thought, okay, what can I really do? I'm not a racist, so I'm not contributing to the problem. I'm not contributing to the racism in America. So outside of that, I can't really do much, but it is using our platforms. It is using, our encounters every single day to help people that do feel injustice, to help and stick up for people that, do need help. So I think that's where the actual change comes from. And I hope, at least with empathy and being able to put ourselves in the other person's shoes, that change can actually matter. And I hope that now, at least without any distractions going on, without anything to come in and take away our attention from the true issues, that maybe change can actually happen. We are responsible for it. And I think it's encouraging to see, again, at least on social media, at least, a lot of white folks, a lot of people of my background, kind of saying the same thing. Like, for the longest time, we didn't really know what to do. And maybe it's just awareness. Maybe it's just realizing, this stuff does happen. How can I, whether it's just on a walk, whether it's just at my place of work, if I see an injustice, stick up for it. Hold that person responsible. Because the longest time, that's also part of the issue. There's no accountability. There's no responsibility. So I hope that this is one of the last protests that we see, because that would mean that change actually is happening. I think that's going to be the case. It's obviously going to take a very long time for change to happen. But at least you hope that these demonstrations this last week, the attention that's been on it throughout the entire country, right? This is not just centralized. Think about it. You've had one incident in Minneapolis, Minnesota, touch cities all around the country and countries all around the globe. You have protests in London. You have protests in Berlin. I saw this morning in New Zealand, there was March for Equal Rights. This is a global issue, and this is not just an issue that's rooted in America and only in America. It's globally. So hopefully change can happen. Hopefully we all of us, no matter where, what our background is, what our job is, what our influence is, what our social group is, we can all inflict change, be more aware of the true issues that go on in our world, and again, bring some light and hold people responsible, and again, just do everything we possibly can, even on the smallest level, whether it's just showing some empathy or standing up for some injustice that you see, that can actually incite change. So again, I don't really know where you want to go or where you want to take this. To be completely honest, it's really your show. So if you do want to give your thoughts, if you do want to comment on Facebook, you're more than welcome to. We'll read those. If you want to get on the air, if you want to shoot me a text, more than welcome as well. If you want to get on Twitter, WWSRN_radio. It's your show. So like I said, I'm here. I kind of give you my thoughts. You're more than welcome to chime in with your thoughts, whatever you think is out there. If there's another way of change, just whatever is on your mind. It's obviously it's a tough time. It's a very tough time in this country. And like I said, now hopefully with the calendar flipping to June, that you hope that just that alone can cite some positivity. And I'm hoping at least seeing the massive amounts of people on the same page doing the right thing in a time where we're so divided more than ever. Hopefully that is the light and the positivity we can take out of all of this. That has been nothing but sad, for sure. So like I said, it's your show. We'll take a break here. If you want to chime in, please reach out. WWSRN_radio on Twitter, Worldwide Sports Radio Network on Facebook. But if not, if you want to get sports, again, it's a sports show. I totally understand. We do have a lot of sports to get to. And speaking of which, speaking of, really needing sports back to try to unify us more than ever, MLB, as we know, the players and the owners are very divided, let's just say, on finances and how the players should be compensated for this shortened season. There's a report yesterday by Buster Olney hinting, and he has sources saying that there are some owners that are pushing for and really more than open to not having baseball in 2020, scrapping the whole thing, saving all of the potential losses of revenue that they would have had if they had a season, and now just are basically punting on 2020 and ready for 2021. Tell you why that's a massive financial mistake from owner's perspective in the long term. When the Morning Boys riding your turn right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. It's time to wake up with the Morning Boys on Worldwide Sports Radio Network. And here's your host, Ryan Hickey.
And welcome back into the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. It is the Morning Boys here on this June 1st. And honestly, as you know, we can only hope with the turn of the calendar, with June, hopefully that things will be positive. The first 5 months were pretty brutal in this country. So hopefully in 2020, June brings some sort of positivity, some sort of change for sure, because I think at this point we're all ready to tap out. It's been a rough 2020 for sure, easily one of the worst years we've ever seen. And hopefully, it just takes, something simple as just a flip of a calendar, because right now it's only gotten worse. Every month has continued to, just when you think can't get any worse this year, well, guess what? Something else happens. And I hate to be at least negative, but to try to transition to sports, I know there's no really easy way to. And if you're more than welcome to chime in on whatever we just talked about opening up, whatever your thoughts on the latest issues going on in the world, Worldwide Sports Radio Network on Facebook, WWSRN_radio on Twitter, whatever platform you want to use to get your thoughts out, we will put it on this show for sure and have your voice heard. But at least here's a way, I guess, if this happens, we are all in trouble. That June can continue to get worse and worse, and 2020 continue to go in a downward trend. And that is a story that was put out yesterday for those of you sports fans. Buster Olney of ESPN, a respected, great MLB insider, wrote an article yesterday, wrote a column, I should say, yesterday. And in it, he included a piece that said his sources are telling him that there's a group of owners that are perfectly willing to not play in 2020. They want to slash the payroll costs, reduce overall costs. And as we've seen, we've already seen that in tons of different areas already. We've seen so many of these organizations have different money tactics in order to save, whether it's furloughing employees. Some teams are suspending 401k contributions. And now in the case of an organization like the Oakland Athletics, stop paying their minor league players. So, everyone in the minor league system, obviously there's no season going on, and there seems to not be a season. If MLB is going to resume, it's only going to be baseball professionally. There's going to be no minor leagues this season is what it's trending towards, but teams are still paying their minor leaguers $400 stipends a week. And you have teams and organizations like the Oakland Athletics who basically stopped and said, we're not paying anyone. Not reducing the pay, not, stopping at the end of the month. We are stopping pay June 1st. You are getting no money for the rest of the year. And so the question is, do owners actually want to see baseball in 2020? They're going to operate at a loss. It seems like for the most part, no matter what financial agreement happens. So would it make sense for them to just cut their losses, basically flush 2020 down the toilet and let's get ready for 2021? And this would be catastrophic. I can't even emphasize that enough, how big of a disaster, how much of a mistake this would be if owners actually think it's a good idea to punt on 2020, to basically cancel the 2020 season and come back in 2021 because of financial reasons. A few reasons. One, listen on Thursday's show, right, we talked about why it's important to back the players in this financial agreement, and basically outlined a few reasons why, in the long run, owners will be able to make up the lost revenue for this year in future years. And that's because currently right now, going back to 2019, there's been 17 straight seasons where revenue in baseball has increased. Back in, last year was the latest example. MLB raked in $10.7 billion in gross revenue. So now, obviously, no matter what's going to happen in 2020, that revenue is going to decrease. And it's going to be the first time in 17 years that revenue doesn't continue to increase on top of each other. But guess what? Forget just 2020. Look at the long term. Look at 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024. If you don't play baseball in 2020 because of finances only, because owners don't want to operate at a loss, or owners don't want to prorate the salaries of the players and thus basically have a stalemate, have a freeze, and don't sign a contract, you can kiss all of those increased revenues in future years goodbye. Think about just this, right? So a shortened season, at least you're getting some sort of revenue, right? You're still getting some sort of TV revenue. And advertisers, they can still advertise, whether it's advertisers in the stadium but you can see on TV. You always have that view from, behind the pitcher's mound. You see there's always some sort of logos or advertisements at the backstop. You can still have those. You can still do different ways to still bring advertisers and have them be seen on television, that obviously they only would be seen at the stadium. But if you don't play any games, you're getting no TV money. You're getting no money from advertisers. Not only are you getting no money in 2020, you're going to have to refund these advertising companies. You're going to have to refund or basically waive 2020 and have that money carry over to 2021. You're going to really put yourself not only in the gutter this year, but in future years as well, because now you're making up for money that was already going to be lost, but now even more lost if they don't play in 2020 because of finances. And another major issue, this is tied back to growing revenues, is that right now, again, I've said this, and I apologize for beating a dead horse, but it's important to recognize this. The future growth of the game of baseball would all basically be killed if baseball doesn't resume in 2020 because of finances. Think about it. The generations MLB is going after currently, the younger generations, the millennials, the Gen X, right? They are the ones that those are the generations MLB wants, because they're young, and you think once you get them at a young age, they'll be fans for life. Happened with me. I'm sure it happened with you. If you're a baseball fan, happened with your parents. That's how, that's what these leagues, the reason why the leagues are always going younger is because you get those, younger kids, get them as fans early, they'll be fans for life. Well, MLB is struggling with drawing young fans, and that's why you've seen different ways to speed up the game, because whether it's Rob Manfred or the owners, they believe that having a quicker game is what will actually lead fans to watching more games. That's why you see new pace of play rules, and you see all these new rules designated to basically make the game as quick as possible. Because in their mind, the best way to draw young fans in a very crowded marketplace where you have all these different distractions, TV shows, streaming networks, sports leagues, that it's tough to get the attention of younger fans and keep their attention for a long time. But just think, if MLB was to resume and even operate at a loss this year, they would have, even if the NBA and NHL resume, they would have a full month to themselves. Because right now you hear the negotiations with the other two leagues that stopped during, obviously stopped during the season. Their goal is to start it in August, late July, early August, for the NBA and both the NHL as well. Well, MLB is still shooting for July 4th. You have a full month right now that you can capture and basically have the entire sporting landscape focused on you. People are desperate for a distraction. People are desperate to have some sort of live sports to cling to watch at night, because watching the news is extremely depressing. There needs to be some sort of outlet now, especially all of us home every day. There's no escape. Every day feels like the same. To have a game to look forward to have a season to look forward to, you are going to get a lot more fans than you normally would in a regular year. And not to mention, too, you have access to fan bases you never had access to before. Think about, again, I just hit on all the distractions that are already out there. Really now we're starting to get to where there is, a content vacuum. There's just not a lot out there anymore. Baseball has a chance right now with a shortened season, with a full month to themselves before, the games even get more increased and the playoffs kick in, where they can access and reach audiences they never have, which means going forward, you can get fans. If you have a young kid who's, bored out of his mind, shocker, you can get him into baseball and have him excited to watch a game every night. You can make a fan for life. You can have that guy watch baseball the rest of this year and then look forward to when the 2021 season comes and vice versa after that. You have a great chance to grow your game easily just by playing without doing anything crazy, without changing the rules. You can grow your game just by playing and have it reach exponential levels that you've never really been able to get before and that you in an area you struggle with. So this is, for future financial sakes, so important that the owners stop looking at, dollars and cents, stop fretting about what a one-year loss is going to do to them, because they have a great opportunity to get so much money more down the road to grow the game and increase their revenues massively as their ownership continues down the years and as the game of baseball continues to grow. And also just think, right now, if baseball can't resume in a pandemic, the world is divided where we need distractions and we're looking to, again, have something to give us hope. Think about how bad, if we go back to 1994, how much that the strike between the players and the owners about finances, how much it alienated fans. Think about it. 1994 was a normal year, right? Let's just pretend 1994 is 2019. Financially, we were okay. There's, again, the world was pretty much, an average place. People were so upset that baseball stopped playing in August, didn't get it together, missed the World Series, and didn't come back till, close to 1995. It took 12 years for fans to come back and for attendance levels to reach the same numbers that it did pre-strike. So just when everything is normal, when people have plenty of distractions, you can go to the beach, you can go out, go shopping, go to work. Back in 1994, before obviously it wasn't pandemic. It wasn't everything that's going on right now. People were that upset that it took a very long time for those fans who did come back to come back. And a lot of the fans did not come back. I could only imagine the damage that's going to be done if MLB shuts their doors with the pandemic going on, with the world as divided as it is, with nothing to do, with people still stuck in their houses. I mean, talk about alienating fans. I would be very afraid that those people who are looking to the sport of baseball or looking to professional sports to resume, to give them some sort of distraction, if it doesn't come back, forget it. Baseball's in the tank. It's going to only go down, and I honestly don't see a way, not to be hyperbolic, not to, be an alarmist. If baseball doesn't come back in 2020 because of finances and finances only, you can kiss the sport of baseball goodbye. And I'm not saying that the league's going to fold. It's not going to fold. Baseball will be around. But it's going to be one of those sports, one of those things where, if you're an average fan, you have to be desperate for anything different to watch a baseball game. And even then, you might not be able to come back because that's how much I think it would alienate people, would get people upset, that people are being selfish, players being selfish, owners being selfish, millionaires fighting billionaires, and that because they couldn't, come together on some sort of insane agreement with unemployment the way it is, with people dying the way they are because of the virus and other reasons, that they couldn't put that aside and come to a deal and basically sacrifice the way everyone else has been sacrificing during this pandemic. I don't see how baseball comes back to anywhere close to the levels that they were in 2019. And that even still, those numbers in 2019 are struggling because their age demographic of the fans are very high. They can't capture the young audience. And guess what? If you don't do that, you're not growing the game. You're not getting future fans, and baseball will only kill itself if they don't resume in 2020. So that's why, to me, even if these owners are operating at a loss, even if they're bleeding money this year, it only makes financial sense to play the 2020 season because the revenues will only increase. You'll get increased attention. You'll be able to grow your game more than you ever would in a normal year. And if you don't resume because of finances, it's going to be catastrophic. Absolutely catastrophic. The game, I'm sorry, it's not coming back. It sort of came back after 1994. You had the home run chase between Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire. That did get a lot of fans back, did get some intrigue back, get some national attention back. But you look right now, the NFL full steam ahead. The NBA constantly growing, and they have really done a great job in capturing that young audience. Those two leagues are only going to continue to explode. MLB is not only going to be left back, they're going to regress on that scale. So that's why, to me, it's so important that baseball, despite the finances, despite the owners losing money, it's so important that they resume and they play baseball in 2020 because the game will be in big, big, big trouble if they can't resume. So I'd love to get your thoughts. If baseball doesn't come back, because I'm curious. Our audience is the perfect people I want to ask. If baseball does not resume, if these group of owners, and they don't say how big, what the numbers, what teams these people own, but if there's a group of owners and they get what they want, and not having the 2020 season, not bothering financially to play baseball, and basically say, you know what, we're bleeding money, we're not going to do it, we'll see you in 2021. If that's the case, would you come back in 2021? Would you still be a baseball fan if the game isn't played, if the league doesn't resume because of finances only? I'm curious to get your thoughts. Would you actually come back in 2020? I'll be honest, I'm a sucker. I'm a Mets fan for life. I will still be a big baseball fan. I'll be very upset. But I can't lie, 2021 opening day, I'll be there watching the Mets. They already have me hook, line, and sinker. I'm one of those, I guess what would you call it, P1 fans. So I'm in. But I'm curious if you're a fringe, average, casual baseball fan and they don't resume in 2020 because of finances, would you come back in 2021? Would you still be a baseball fan next year? I'm curious. I'd love to get your thoughts either on Facebook, World Art Sports Radio Network, on Twitter, WWSRN_radio. We still have a lot to get to. We still have 2020 Apocalypse. I feel like now, that game could be more useful than ever to give us all a good laugh and take our mind off what's going on. So that still will happen at 10:20. At 10:40, have Gary Washburn from the Boston Globe, national NBA reporter, talk about these playoff formats, which we'll discuss here coming up in a little bit as well. The NBA resuming has 4 playoff formats left. They're going to vote on Thursday, and it's expected that Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, is going to pick one of the 4 options, put it up to a vote for the Board of Governors, and it seemed like whatever option Adam Silver picks, the Board of Governors are going to approve, and that's going to be the path for the NBA to resume. So we'll give you all 4 options. We'll rank the best to the worst. We'll also love to get Gary's thoughts again in just about an hour or so on what the best option for NBA resuming is, and also the Celtics. I mean, they're an interesting team. Let's not forget, young team, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart. What would be the best playoff option for them to have some success? So we'll talk to Gary about that again in about an hour or so. When we come back, we do have our most intriguing NFL teams of 2020, numbers 8 through 5. So we are close. We are very, very, very close to revealing the top 4 and the most teams that are going to be intriguing, the teams you're going to be watching every single week in and week out for the 2020 season. So we'll do that when the Morning Boys return right here on the World Art Sports Radio Network.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. It's time to wake up with the Morning Boys on Worldwide Sports Radio Network. And here's your host, Ryan Hickey.
Welcome back into the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. It is the Morning Boys here on this Monday, June 1st. Hopefully, fingers crossed, the change of the calendar will only bring some positivity into all of our lives, as we obviously all desperately need it. But we hope wherever you're listening, wherever you are, you're staying safe, staying sane, and getting through this tough time together. So like I said, I was curious. We just talked about MLB possibly returning. There's a new report out there that the owners really, aren't all in. And there's a group of them that are more than willing and more than content on basically canceling 2020 and saving all the money that they would pay on payroll, not operating at a loss for this short season, and instead just wait till 2021 when theoretically they can have fans back in the stands and you can have everything basically as close to normal as possible. Their thinking is, let's just wait till that point, forget this year, and let's just move on. I think that would be beyond devastating to the sport. Revenues are going to tank. They've grown for 17 straight seasons. I don't see how that's going to anywhere increase. Forget 2020. Going forward, 2021, 2022, they have a great opportunity to reach fans they never have reached, to capture an audience and make fans for life during this time where we're all desperate for distraction, all desperate for something to root for and latch onto. Baseball not playing in 2020 because of finances. I'll take what Jared Diamond said on Thursday if you missed it. It would be suicidal to the league. Absolutely suicidal. So I'll take your thoughts. The question is, if baseball doesn't play in 2020 because of finances, would you come back as a fan in 2021? I'm afraid a lot of people would not come back. The strike in 1994 really got a lot of people upset, and that was just during a time when there's really nothing going on, no reason to be upset. Obviously, now more than ever, as we know, this world, it's been a very tough year, to say the least. And I feel like this is where we really could use sports, really could use something uplifting to take our mind away and distract us, at least for a little bit, on what's going on. And I feel like that will just be detrimental to the entire league, the entire growth, the entire future of the sport if they don't play. So let's get your thoughts on if you would come back in 2021 if baseball is not played. We'll get that on Facebook, Worldwide Sports Radio Network, Twitter, WWSRN_radio. And if you like what you're hearing on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network, or like what you're reading, if you read our articles at worldwidesportsradio.com, great news. Everything's a one-stop shop. If you download our app at WWSRN, if you have iOS or Worldwide Sports Radio Network on Android, everything, all of our shows, all of our written content, all the YouTube clips that are cut up after the show by our great producer, Speedy Petey, and put on there for your consuming pleasure. It's all in one place, all centralized, all localized on the app, WWSRN on iOS, Worldwide Sports Radio Network on Android. Highly suggest it. Makes your life so much easier. Where you can just go to one spot, watch a show, listen to the show, read articles, watch YouTube clips, and have everything, all your news come from one outlet. So again, WWSRN on iOS. If you have an iPhone, Worldwide Sports Radio Network. If you have Android. So we didn't get to this on Thursday, but we'll get to it today. And that is the NFL. Obviously, we are counting down to the season starting. Hopefully it starts on time. But now that free agency is in the books, now that the draft is done, for the most part, trades, for the most part, the core of the NFL teams are set. So now the question, all right, basically now that the rosters for the most part are set, which are going to be the most exciting, which are going to be the most intriguing teams to watch this upcoming year? We're not ranked, so we're ranking 32 to 1. We're at number 8. We're going to go to number 5 today. It's not about how good the teams are going to be. It's not about projecting who's going to be the Super Bowl champion. It's going to be which teams, week in and week out, are we going to always have an eye on, going to want to watch their games, and always basically look out for on NFL Sundays to see how they do, what crazy thing happens, which player, maybe there's a player or two that we like on that team that we always want to check out, see their highlights. So we have done so far as numbers 9 through 32. We have 8 teams left. So all these 8 teams, for the most part, that we'll discuss today and Thursday, are teams you're going to be paying attention to all the time, no matter what. No matter what team you're a fan of, no matter, Sunday. I apologize. NFL Sunday, you'll be watching them. So number 8, we'll get all that precursor. We'll get to it. Number 8, I have the San Francisco 49ers, obviously coming off the Super Bowl run. I'm really excited to see in the second full season, right, because obviously Jimmy Garoppolo has been in San Francisco longer than just 1 year, but he's only had one healthy season where he's played a full 16 games. I'm excited to see what him and Kyle Shanahan can do. And again, in year 2, to where he is the full-time starter and will be there for the full year, I think their connection should grow, their comfortability should grow. And we saw a team that relied so much on the run game and relied on it, not even relied on it, had success with it. I think I'm really excited to see if Jimmy could take the next step in that offense and make it even more potent than it was last year. And speaking of the running game, to me, playing receiver in high school, I'm a fan that does appreciate the aerial attack. I do appreciate seeing teams, throw it all over the yard. And to me, that's what I like to watch as a fan. But I'll say this, watching the 49ers last year, it was entertaining as hell. It was so much fun to see Kyle Shanahan drawing up the way the run scheme was. And basically, despite everybody knowing the run is coming, don't know where it's going, don't know how it's looking, don't know who's getting the ball. It was so impressive that the 49ers can be so one-dimensional with a non-mobile quarterback, by the way, because the Ravens were the same thing, right? The Ravens were a team that ran the ball a ton, but also that you had a quarterback that was mobile and so lethal with his feet that basically you had to counter him, make sure that you contain him, and then worry about the run game after that. Obviously, Jimmy Garoppolo is not a running threat. He's mobile. in the pocket when throwing. That's about it. He's not, you're not worried about him keeping it and running, 30 yards for a touchdown. So despite not having to worry about the quarterback, it's still so impressive, so much fun to see Kyle Shanahan draw up all these schemes that, despite what's coming, you still can't stop it. I mean, do we have to go back to the NFC title game where Jimmy Garoppolo attempted, I think it was 8 passes, and they just ran all over the Packers. It was so much fun to see, so cool to watch. So like I said, I'm really excited to see what Kyle Shanahan has up his sleeve this year, how he builds on that. And I think their offense is only getting better. You had Joe Staley retire while they traded for Trent Williams. So their offensive line is only getting better. It's only solidifying. So I think this is a young team that won't be like the Rams in 2018, won't be like the Falcons back in 2016, where they made it to the Super Bowl and then kind of, sputtered after. I think this is a team that's hungry. I think this is a team that's only getting better. There should be no Super Bowl hangover for the 49ers. I'm really excited to see what they have in store for 2020, and I think that this is a team that's going to be a lot of fun to watch, a team that you really have to keep your eye out for this upcoming season. So I have the 49ers number 8. Number 7, the Dallas Cowboys. Ton of storylines, and as we've seen, they've really dominated the offseason headlines, a lot of them, because the main question is going to be, what is going to be with Dak Prescott? No matter what happens, this is a great part about the Cowboys. No matter what happens with Dak's contract situation, we're going to have our eyes on Dallas. It's going to be Dak's first year or Mike McCarthy. And 2 options are going to happen. Either there's going to be a massive deal done where Dak is going to either be the highest paid quarterback in the NFL or close to it. A lot of people, including myself, do not believe he deserves that kind of money. And I believe that with all that, with a large chunk of the money going towards Dak, making it harder to retain the pieces around him, I think he'll struggle. I personally do. I don't think Dak is one of those guys that lifts the team around him. I think the team is an elevated Dak Prescott's level of play. But he's either going to get a massive deal, and we're going to see if he can live up to it, or he's going to be playing on the franchise tag, and he's going to be a free agent at the end of the season unless they franchise him again. So I'm excited to see how he plays, because either he's going to have to try to live up to a contract, or he's going to be playing for that massive contract. And again, with a new head coach, Mike McCarthy, let's just see how he gels. The offense is going to be fun. And listen to these weapons. Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, CeeDee Lamb, arguably the best wide receiving core group in all of the NFL. You still have Ezekiel Elliott, so one of the best running backs in the NFL. You have a great offensive line that hurt a little bit by the retiring of their center, Travis Frederick, but still very solid. It should be, again, give open the holes for Zeke and give Dak plenty of time. It's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be positive in terms of intrigue and watchability. The defense for the Cowboys, especially their back 7, linebackers and secondary, really took a hit in free agency. They lost Byron Jones, they lost Jeff Heath, they lost some important secondary, especially secondary pieces. So what does that mean? Why is that a good thing? Guess what? Teams that are playing the Cowboys, I'm going to be putting up a lot of points. They want to keep up with that offense, but more importantly also, that Cowboys defense is not good enough to hold teams down. So it's going to be a lot of fun seeing these shootouts, these high-scoring games that it should be, because the Cowboys defense can't stop anyone, and you think with the offense that the Cowboys have, the weapons they have, a lot of teams won't be able to stop them. So high-scoring, exciting games should come down to the finish. That's why the Cowboys are going to be very watchable. And you look on paper, this is a team that should be in the playoffs. We said the same thing last year. I thought the Cowboys had one of the best rosters in all of football last year. Obviously, they finished 8-8. What does that mean? Nothing. On paper, it doesn't mean anything. You got to play the game. But, the last thing, and this is, part of the reason why they struggled, they have not played well in big games. Dak Prescott or the Cowboys. So I'm curious, is this the year that they finally get over the hump? Is this the year they finally, break that curse, play well, win the big game? Because what was it last year? Despite all the talent they had, despite Dak's statistical success, when it came to playing the big games and the big moments, Dak and the Cowboys struggled. The offense wasn't good at all. They lost all those games. As you see, 8-8, despite having one of the most talented rosters in football. That cost Jason Garrett his job. It's interesting now. Now we'll see, is it Jason Garrett's fault, or is this just the Cowboys overall, whether it's Dak Prescott, whether it's the team, can't come up in the big game? I think this is going to be a big storyline we'll be following for sure. That's with the Cowboys at number 7. Number 6, the New England Patriots. Obviously, Tom Brady's left. We all know that. They have been, one of the teams we've always been watching this free agency. All eyes are going to be on Jarrett Stidham. How can he play? He is going to be the guy this year, it seems like, to try to replace Tom Brady, a task that's basically impossible. But let's say this. In the past, Bill Belichick has made a career. He basically made his career And the reason why he's been so successful, so consistent, and won 6 Super Bowls is because he's been able to replace skilled players basically without a hitch. Right? He's seen plenty of guys go to free agency, get paid massive deals in other areas, and he's replaced them with players just as capable or even better. This is going to be the first time he's had to replace a quarterback. And obviously, again, Tom Brady, the success he's had, he's the greatest quarterback in NFL history, bar none, hands down to me. So trying to replace him and trying to replace that is going to be basically impossible. But can, Jarrett Stidham play well enough to keep it going? We will see. It's going to be a very interesting storyline to see. So how will Jarrett Stidham play? How can Bill Belichick adapt to trying to replace the greatest player in franchise history, one of the greatest players in NFL history? And this is why I think it's also going to be important and intriguing to watch in this year, because really, 2 things are going to happen. Either the Patriots are going to stink, and everyone's going to, really eat it up, really let it soak in, and basically dance on the Patriots' grave. They go 7-9, even worse, they miss the playoffs. I think everyone's going to be enjoying it and loving it, because for 2 decades we've seen the Patriots kill everyone's hopes and dreams. So I think seeing them fail is going to be good for everybody. Or 2, they're going to win. Bill Belichick's going to win 10 games. He's going to win the AFC East. They're going to go to the playoffs. They're going to get a home playoff game in Gillette. And everyone's going to be amazed, including myself, that, wow. No matter what happens, this team continues to win. Bill Belichick continues to put competent, competitive teams out there. And no matter what, they just win. It may not be pretty. It may not be sexy. It may not be appealing. They win. So let's not forget, the defense was great last year. It's still extremely talented this year. They returned basically most of the defense, if not all the defense. That was great. That stopped a lot of teams. That was one of the best units overall in all the NFL last year. So it's going to be the offense to elevate them and win the games. But the Patriots will be definitely intriguing to see. And number 5, I'm trying not to put this team and have it have the same fate as the Browns last year. Now, I don't think the expectations are the same, because last year people were talking about the Browns going to the Super Bowl. But I think this year, this is a team that's been the offseason darling, a team that people are really starting to buy into, and maybe we could see a nice jump in 2020. That is at number 5, the Arizona Cardinals. Kyler Murray had a promising rookie season. Thought he played really well. I continue to improve as the year went on. I like the chemistry, him and Cliff Kingsbury have. And people are really buying into it, so much so. You have Bucky Brooks of NFL.com. He predicted Kyler Murray to win the MVP. Now, I think it's a little overblown. I think it's a little overboard. He's kind of taking a formula and applying it blindly to where the last 2 MVPs, Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes, basically have won MVPs in their second season in the NFL. Obviously, Kyler Murray, coming off his rookie year, will be in his second season. So I don't think he's going to win the MVP. I don't think he's going to be that good. But I'm really excited. I think the Arizona Cardinals last year, I've said this a bunch if you listen to the show, were a frisky bunch, right? They were a team that, sure, they were 5-11, but they pushed teams to the brink. Both games they played against San Francisco, they pushed them to the brink. They gave them a shot. They gave them all they can handle. The Cardinals weren't one of those teams that lie down and just got ran over. They played every team tough. They played every team physical. They were in it to the end for most of these games. So now you look. They add weapons. They had, obviously, massive addition in DeAndre Hopkins. So you add him to Larry Fitz, Christian Kirk, Kenyon Drake now, who'll be there for a full season after they got him mid-year in a trade. I love that their offensive line improved. They got a great player in Josh Jones, who, by some mock drafts, is going to be a first-round draft pick, win the 3rd round. So I love that. The offensive line is going to be very important, because that was one of the weakest positions on this team. They improved that. They shored that up. Isaiah Simmons is going to be a freak, and so much fun to see how he's used. I can't even really say what position he is, because he plays everywhere. Safety, linebacker, defensive end. He's just a jackknife, a utility man on the defense. He just plays. And I'll take a quote for what he said at the Combine. What position do you play, Isaiah Simmons? Defense. Because he plays everywhere. So I'm excited to see what Isaiah Simmons can do on the NFL level. So like I said, I think they will be a playoff contender. You have one more team, obviously, added to each conference. The NFC is extremely tough. So I'm not saying I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. But I think they'll be on the doorstep. I think 8-8, 9-7 is absolutely not out of the realm, not out of the possibility at all. I like the Cardinals. I'm not going overboard. I'm not saying they're making the playoffs, not buying in totally. But I like what they're building. I like how they did last year. And again, I think that they've only improved this offseason in all different areas and all different phases of the team. I really, really, really like what the Cardinals are doing. And for me, that's why, no matter what their record is, I'll be watching the Cardinals almost every single week at one point or another in the 2020 season. So that is it, numbers 8 through number 5, the 49ers, Cowboys, Patriots, and Cardinals. Thursday's show, we reveal the top 4 teams you will always have your eyes on. You will always be watching no matter what, no matter who they're playing. I think it's going to be very exciting. For sure, we'll give you those teams you're going to be watching no matter what. And when we come back, before we have Gary Washburn on, in about a half hour or so, we have 4 NBA playoff formats when they resume that are going to be played. We'll tell you what they are, what the 4 formats are, and which one's the best one. We'll rank them when the Morning Boys. Ryan Hickey return right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. It's time to wake up with the Morning Boys on Worldwide Sports Radio Network. And here's your host, Ryan Hickey.
Welcome back into the Morning Boys with Ryan Hickey right here, exclusively only on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. We hope you're having a good Monday. We do appreciate you tuning in and starting your week with us every Monday and Thursday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. on the East Coast. So we do appreciate any time you can give us get a listen for 10 minutes, 2 hours, anywhere in between. We appreciate your support and you tuning in for sure. So like I said, we still have a great show rest of you for coming up in the second hour, if I can talk. 2020 Apocalypse coming up about 10 or so minutes. We have a contestant. If you want to be a participant on the show, the top 2 finishers, I should say, do get prizes. Reach out, Facebook, Twitter, text me. We'll get you on the show for sure and have you participate in 2020 or Apocalypse, the fastest growing game show in all of America. Not my words, for sure. And then we'll finish up the show in about a half hour or so, 20 minutes. Will be Gary Washburn from the Boston Globe, national NBA reporter, covers the Celtics, covers the whole rest of the league. We'll get his thoughts on what we're about to discuss right now, which is the NBA restarting their season. We've talked about some different options. I gave you my option of 20 teams, basically having, half the teams play regular season. The bottom half of the league, the last 8 teams play each other. It's like a playing tournament, and have those teams then play the other 12 teams that were playing some seeding games, and that way you have 16 teams play regular season. Well, the NBA released 4 options for restarting the season. One of the 4 will be chosen by Adam Silver to present to the Board of Governors on Thursday. They will vote. It seems from the reporting that no matter what option is picked, the Board of Governors will approve, and that will be going on to a plan to resume the season. So the 4 options are 16 teams going directly to the playoffs. So 8 teams in the East, 8 teams in the West. Right now, as the standings say, those 16 teams, right to the playoffs. Second option, 20 teams, all by record-wise. So you have the 8 teams in the East, 8 teams in the West, and the four teams below them right out of the playoffs. The Pelicans, the Kings, the Spurs, and the Trailblazers would also be included, with a group stage similar to the World Cup format play, and then go to the best of 7 with those winners after that. 22 teams is the third option. So basically every team within 6 games of the playoffs to have, games played to determine seeding and then have a play-in tournament. And then finally you bring all 32 teams back, have a 72-game regular season, which means if teams play 65 games, you play 7 games. If teams play 67 games, you play 5 games. Whatever amount of games you have to play in order so everyone has played 72 games equally. And then from there, go have a play-in tournament for a select number of teams as well. So we'll rank them quickly here. The best plans to resume. Number 1, to me, I think the best plan for resumption is a 20-team group stage World Cup format play. 4 divisions, 4 teams in each division. Obviously, each team plays each other twice in that division. The top 2 teams in each division move on. And then you have 8 teams. Everyone plays each other in a best of 7 series. So basically, in the World Cup format, then you resume to the semis, conference finals, and finals. Whether that's, you seed through the records, whether the seeding is unknown. But basically, I think to me that's the best option because you can use these World Cup games, you can use this group stage play, if you will, to use a World Cup term, as regular season games. So you have 20 teams coming back. You can have these 6 games that are televised for each team, or 6 teams that each team would play, use as regular season games, so you come as close to possible to fulfilling those regional sports networks contracts, so you're saving yourself some money. And then from there, you could start the playoffs with the conference semifinals with basically 8 teams and have them play a best of 7 series. So to me, it addresses everything everybody wants. The owners want some sort of regular season because, again, they want to limit the amount of money they're paying back to the regional sports networks and get as close to fulfilling those contracts as possible. The players want to have regular season games because they want to knock the rust off, and they don't think it's a smart idea to go right to the playoffs. So the Lakers, obviously, these teams haven't played in months. I mean, they're talking about resuming play end of July, early August. So that's March, April, May, June, July. 4 months where they haven't played a game, they haven't practiced. If anything, that if you have some sort of workout equipment by you, but for the most part, you are not getting the proper training, you're not getting the proper practice that you need to all of a sudden then have a few week training camp go right into games. Players don't want that, so they want an opportunity to knock some rust off in some regular season games. So I think to me, this is perfect. This is absolutely perfect. You get what the players want, you get what the owners want, and more importantly, you get what the fans want. Because I don't know about yourself, the first round of the playoffs, to me, for the most part, is not that exciting. Like I said earlier in the open, there's not a lot of parity in the NBA, so I get you can't do a lot to change that. And they shouldn't rig the league or rig the playoffs to where the best teams are having the hardest time to win. I'm not trying to say that at all. But if you can add some excitement to where now you have a team like the Bucks, which if they were to play the Magic or the Nets in the first round of the playoffs, there's no doubt. If they win in anything but 4 games, it would be a surprise, right? But now all of a sudden, not that you expect the Bucks to stumble, but you're playing 6 games. These 6 games basically are the playoffs are how you advance. So if you have a bad 1-2 games, all of a sudden now, these games mean something. So sure, we don't, let's say that, the Bucks are playing, they're in a division with, let's just say, the Grizzlies and the Nets, right? Two teams on the bottom of each conference, respectively, in the playoff format. You don't expect that the Bucks should win, but it makes it interesting when, 6 games can really change the outcome. To me, it's more exciting when you have basically every game almost be a must-win Game 7 situation. So I think it makes it more exciting for the fans, because anything can really happen in some of these group stage formats. Again, and you allow the players to knock some rust off, and the owners can fulfill those regional sports networks contracts. The second greatest idea, I'll say, or second best idea, is taking those 16 teams going directly to the playoffs. We rarely see upsets. Like I said, there's so little parity, in the NBA, that the fight for the 8th seed, it's not worth it. It's not a huge game changer, especially in the West. Right? You have 4 teams within, I think, 3.5 games of each other for the 8th spot. Whether it's the Spurs, the Trailblazers, the Pelicans, does anyone really think that those teams are going to beat the Lakers or the Bucks, however they end up seeding it? No. So it only makes sense that, you take as little amount of teams as possible. With 16 teams, obviously, this is the least amount of teams. So you still protect the playoffs and still give yourself the least amount of exposed players and set yourself up for the least amount of possibility of the virus shutting down the season by bringing only half the league. So that's why I would go right to the playoffs, bring 16 teams, and maybe have a little bit of a round-robin tournament to figure out some seeding and play some regular season games. So, again, you're not going directly into the playoffs, per se, where you're going directly into a best-of-7 series. But I think this would be the second best option because guess what? It's all half of these half of it is about trying to put the best product on the field and making it the fairest champion. Half it is also saving your butt to realize the more teams we bring back, the bigger risk that a players, or a full team or teams get sick with the virus, and all of a sudden that shuts down the league and we're not able to finish the playoffs. The number one most important thing for the NBA is finishing the playoffs, getting to the finals, and finishing those finals. That's where all the money is in the NBA, is the playoffs. You do whatever it takes to preserve that, to make sure that that happens. One of those ideas, obviously, is to, again, bring the least amount of teams as possible. 22 teams to determine seeding and playing tournament. To me, 22 teams are too much. The Wizards are 24-40. The Suns are 26-39. A team 16 games under 500 should not get a chance to fight for and have an opportunity to win the title. I'm sorry. So I just think it's too much. You're inviting too many teams. I like the goal of playing seeding. I like the playing tournament idea. Too many teams. For me, I just think the risk is too high to bring that many people to Orlando in one city. And again, risk that, one player on a bad team can get sick, spread it, and all of a sudden now next half the league's infected and it can't stop. And then to me, finally, on that note, 30 teams, 72 regular season playing tournament, worst idea. And bringing back every team beyond pointless, it's reckless, it's dangerous, and it only hurts the league more than helps it. You have players already coming out and saying they don't want to play if they don't have a chance at the playoffs. You had Damian Lillard say, if the Trailblazers aren't allowed to play or aren't allowed a chance for the playoffs, he's not playing. He'll sit there. He'll sit on the bench. He's not going to play. And Steve Kerr basically say the Warriors are in off-season mode. They're not going to, they're basically already acting like the season's already over for them. Don't do it. No point in trying to bring back teams that are basically have folded up shop for 2020 to play 5 to 9 games to get some regional contracts fulfilled. Not worth it. So I do love the 2020 World Cup idea. We'll discuss and get the thoughts from Gary Washburn from the Boston Globe in just about 20 minutes or so, get his thoughts on what the best plan for resumption in the NBA is. But when we come back, the fastest growing game show in all of America, a game show everyone loves to be a part of, 2020 or Apocalypse. We will have our contestant and tell you who it is next on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
To the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. It's time to wake up with the Morning Boys on Worldwide Sports Radio Network. And here's your host, Ryan Hickey.
And welcome back into the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. It is the Morning Boys of Ryan Hickey right here on this Monday morning. It is 10:20 on the East, which you know what that means. It is time for the fastest growing game show in all of America, 2020 or Apocalypse. A very, very tough leaderboard. We have our next participant right here, feeling good, feeling fire here, and we'll see if he can go 5 for 5 and get in the money. Very excited here. Had a lot of family on the show, a lot of friends. First time a coworker is coming on and participating. That is the great Mike Biseglia. Now, if you don't know Mike, very decorated background, very interesting background that we'll dive into as well. He is the producer for the Zach Gelb Show, the executive producer for the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio, a show that I'll be working on actually a little bit later on tonight. So very cool to have him on right now. Host of the Mike Delivers podcast, which is a great food podcast, which we'll dive into a little bit here. And also, as he claims, cat lover and cat owner. So Mike Bisegs, what's going on, man? How are you today?
I'm good, Ryan. Thank you very much for having me on. I appreciate it, and everything you stated just before is absolutely true. Thanks for having me on, man.
I appreciate because being, both of us in the producer realm, or at least being behind the scenes, we're used to what it's like to be on our position. To be on the other side is very funny, as you send credits, cat lover, cat owner. I appreciate that aspect to include with your laundry list of a great resume of producing, hosting your own podcast. But don't forget, cat lover. How is your cat, Leon?
Man. Yeah, Leon's doing great. And, I take a lot of pride and a lot of respect in being a cat lover. I know it's a big debate that goes on nationally is, are you a cat guy? Are you a dog guy? First off, I think it's great if you're either. I think it's awesome to be in touch with animals and love animals and be involved with animals any way you can. I think is awesome. I tend to lean on the cat side of things. I think their personalities just give a little bit more to offer to other people, and they're easier to deal with. You don't have to walk them. You just throw them in a litter box, or they go in themselves. I don't throw them. And then they take care of things. But
sorry about that.
Yeah, man, big cat guy.
Big cat guy, and if you like cats, if you are, as Mike says, one of the cat people, I know it's a very divisive world out there between cat and dog owners. Mike Delivers Pod on Twitter at Mike Delivers Pod. You can see basically it's basically nightly photos of Leon, right? Whether it's you're working, whether he's in weird places in your kitchen or in your house, just almost daily pictures of your cat Leon. Is that correct?
Yeah, and it's all about his schedule. The prima donna that he is. If he finds time for me, I'll take some photos. I've heard some people say, oh, it's a little creepy. You take pictures of your cat. And I say, yeah, you're probably right. It's really creepy. But I can't help it. When you fall in love, you fall in love. So I like to showcase his beauty and his elegance. And, yeah, Instagram, Twitter, you'll find some pictures of Mr. Leon all over the place.
So there you go. There's something to brighten your day, almost daily pictures of Leon. Whatever he's doing, Mike is all over it. Biseg's all over it, photographing him. He doesn't know he's a star yet. He's right below Haji, which is Keith Hernandez's cat. That's probably number one, I'll say, in the cat famous on Twitter. But Leon's right there, number 2. He's close. So maybe if your support, you check him out, give him a follow, you'll put him past Haji there as the most famous cat on Twitter. Bisegs, all right. So you're ready. We have a nice, fun game here. 5 questions. I'll give you 5 headlines. You have to say whether it's something that actually happened in 2020 or this has only happened in the apocalypse, not real, and thankfully did not happen.
Okay.
So obviously scores 1 to 5. Top 2 places get prize, gift cards to whatever locale you want. Locally support local business. So we're trying to get back here. Right now the leaderboard is 4.
Wow.
Perfect score still out there if you want it. Are you ready to try to go 5 for 5?
I'm ready just to get 1, Ryan. I'm very anxious and nervous. You really set me up. I was feeling all loosey-goosey see, then I heard that at 4, but I'll give it my best. Let's go.
All right, let's see. We'll try to get your perfect score here. Number 1, this is literally right up your alley. An Uber driver in California has implemented a system where he takes the temperature of each passenger he picks up and charges them extra for every degree their body temperature is over 98.6. Apocalypse or 2020?
Oh, my goodness. Well, first of all, it's a smart idea, I guess, if you want to be safe. Now, I'm an Uber Eats driver. I've never driven another person.
That's a fair point.
So I don't have that quite insight, but I'm going to say this is not true.
You are correct. That is thankfully not the case. There is no surcharge for body temperature. At least not yet. You never. It is 2020, and things have gotten crazy, but at least not yet. Okay. That is not the correct. So you are correct. You are 1 for 1. Look at that. You already beat your benchmark, your bar here. You already surpassed it. Let's see if we can go 2 for 2.
Ooh, okay.
Men with long ring fingers may have a lower chance of dying from the coronavirus. Real 2020 or apocalypse?
Men with, say that again for me?
So men with longer ring fingers than their middle finger, so abnormally long ring fingers, have a lower chance of dying from the coronavirus.
Jeez, well, I'm looking at my hand right now. My middle finger is longer than my ring finger.
Same.
I did have COVID, and it wasn't thrilling. I didn't love it, but thankfully everything is okay. I'm going to say that's false as well.
That is true. The Early Human Development published a study stating that a longer ring finger means more testosterone, which is believed to protect against severe corona-related illnesses.
Okay.
So
more testosterone. Now making me feel like less of a man.
But hey, you know what? I think you should be more of a man. You said, screw it. Yeah. I don't need genetics. I'm beating this thing no matter what, and you crushed corona.
Right. That's right, baby. All right, cool. It's part of this game, too, now. It's like, you think back to your answer before, and you think, which way would Ryan go? That was number 2 was the question that kind of pinpoints you off in which direction you're going to go. It's almost like game 2 of a sports series. Is this going to be a 1-1 or a 2-0 series? And I evened it up at 1-1, and now it's going to be tough to get the home court back.
It is interesting. You're the first person that people. It's funny. I don't really put an order, or I guess I try to order to where people wouldn't get a pattern. Because that's like people have guessed, like, all right, we just had the apocalypse or just had a real thing. It has to even now. Let's go the other ways. Nobody's going to put 2 or 3 in a row. So I appreciate that you're thinking of the pattern, but just think I've also thought of the pattern. I'm trying to make this as difficult as possible. You ready for number 3?
Yeah, let's do it.
An NBA player, you're a Nets fan, he did not say, we will not include the team here, but an NBA player has claimed to not have physically worked out since the shutdown, but instead has been keeping his mind sharp through studying potential playoff opponents by playing only NBA 2K every single day. Apocalypse of 2020.
I'm going to say that is a real story.
Thankfully, that is not true. That is fake. No one has come out yet to claim that they have not worked out, and basically the only way they're preparing for the season is by studying their playoff opponents by playing 2K. That is thankfully not the case. How would you be pretty upset, I'm sure, right? If you had Joe Harris or KD come out and say, you know what, screw the workouts. I'm playing 2K. I'll play as the Bucks. I'll play as the Celtics. I'll learn their intricacies through playing them on that video game.
I guess I'm more just disappointed in myself because I'm just going to make this about me because my job every day is to scour the internet for stories. And when you said that, I was like, I didn't see that story, but it sure sounds like a story I'd find. So I was just like, yeah, it's probably true. But yeah, you got me on that one. No, I guess it would be kind of annoying if you found out guys were doing that. But at the same time, I suppose if they had no access to gyms or had no access to doing anything, and, thankfully we're moving to a time where hopefully guys can get some exercise and weights, etc. But I guess that's better than nothing. But I see your point. And, if that was their alternative, it's probably not a good idea. But still better than just watching Office reruns all day.
That sounds like, is that what you've been doing for a lot of your time here on your downtime, watching a lot of Office?
That's the one show I have watched. I've actually just done an incredible amount of stuff. I've just been working, doing a lot of different things. But when I do find myself chilling for a little bit, I have been watching The Office. That's what I fall asleep to now. I watched The Office, and I'm on season 5. So figure we started this 3 months ago. I'm only on season 5, so kind of going slow. But at the same time, I want to see what happens to Michael Scott and how he leaves. So don't don't blow that for me.
I will not. No spoilers here for sure. But Seg, I mean, you've been busy. Let's hear about the podcast. Mike Delivers Podcast. It's a food review podcast. Like you said, you're Uber Eats driver, so you have plenty of experience in the food world. A lot of the stories have been about your experience delivering food, the interactions you've had with some people, some funny people for sure. What's the pod been like these last few weeks and months, obviously, with everything that's going on?
Yeah, so the last couple of months, I have not myself done the deliveries, but I've been talking to people that have done the deliveries. So just getting some interviews with different people on the road, their experience with how everything has been with COVID-19, dealing with customers, restaurants. I have an interesting interview coming out tomorrow where I talk to somebody that created an app that's supposed to slow down people like DoorDash, Uber Eats, and give more control to the restaurants. So
wow.
A big deal right now, Hickey, is a lot of these restaurants, unfortunately, they can't open their doors to have people come inside and eat. So what they've obviously adapted to is doing Uber Eats and DoorDash. But these companies have just been killing the restaurants because they're handcuffed and they really don't have much that they can do. So they're charging surpluses of like 30%, which is just ridiculous because, the restaurant needs to survive. They can't have people coming in, and then these big companies like Uber Eats and DoorDash are taking advantage of them and just crushing them with these surcharges. So I actually talked to a guy, this was super interesting, where they're giving the restaurant the power back and basically creating their own Uber Eats and DoorDash within the restaurant that helps them with the interface of the menu online, with drivers, and then all that money that they lost, it goes to them instead of going to this big corporation. And with that, with the extra surplus of money, they can then give that back out to customers and give them advantages and rewards. So it's really a win-win. And until some of these other third-party companies and delivery companies can kind of lean back a little bit, because it's not fair to the restaurants right now, because they've lost pretty much all of their in-house service, people going into the restaurant.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Wow, that's listen, fighting. We all love the underdog here, right? And I think that's a great underdog story of just pushing back against the big corporations. Like you said, you hate to see them take advantage. Mike Delivers Podcast, right? Apple Podcasts, Spotify.
Yeah.
Where can we find it? Big one dropping tomorrow, you said, correct?
Yeah, that's dropping tomorrow. Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeart. Basically, where all podcasts can be found. Just type in Mike Delivers, and you can find that. And there's a full catalog of stories from my stories from the road, seeing people naked. And then my wife and I got some food reviews from some Uber Eats places. So we have a lot of fun with it. That's a true story. Naked people on the road.
Wow, that is a must listen for sure. And these food reviews you've been doing, right. Mike Delivers Pod on Twitter, on Instagram. You're doing a great job entertaining. You're taking food, giving your reviews. It's been awesome to watch. Mike Delivers Pod, Twitter, Instagram, and obviously anywhere you can get your podcasts as well. But thanks. All right, we got 2 questions left. The good news is one out of 3, not great, but the good news is, like I said, top 2 places to get the prize money. Second place is still there. 3 out of 5 is still attainable. You go 2 for 2 here. You're still in the money. You're still sitting pretty. You're ready to turn this around. Yes.
Did anybody get 0?
No. So for this game has been, I think this is maybe the 10th or 11th time we've done it.
Oh wow.
So we've done about a month. Shows on twice a week. So give or take. So we had 2 people score scores of 1. Which you got right now, but so far no one has scored a 0.
Okay, wow, kudos to you. These are tough, Mike.
I'm getting a lot of complaints, besides the media is very critical here. The feedback is very tough. So I've been trying to toughen it up here. I've been criticized a lot. So we'll see. We try to make it fair. That's the goal. We try to make it fair.
All right, I'm ready.
Number 4, 3 young boys were hospitalized after allowing a black widow spider to bite them, thinking it would turn them into Spider-Man.
That's true.
That is, boom, ding, 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 2020. 3 Bolivian boys found the spider and provoked the spider to bite each of them, again, thinking they were turning to Spider-Man. Thankfully, they all had to go to the hospital, but all were discharged. Thankfully, a week later, okay. So that's obviously Black Widow, very poisonous, not good. Not a good spider to get bit by, but all good. And obviously, now they learned a hard lesson. Can't get bit and turn to Spider-Man. Not real.
Yeah, not real. That's only in the movies.
Only in the movies. That's a discussion their parents probably should have with them a while before they even went down that road. But hey,
yeah, I agree.
Guess some lessons are better learned hard. That's for sure. All right, Basegs, for the money, for second place here, number 5. Are you ready?
Yeah. See, this is like, in the NBA before Game 7s, they used to do best out of 5s in the first round.
Yep.
And boy, I'm feeling the pressure right now. Game 5, for the win, or is the season over? I'm ready.
That's it. To continue to stay alive here. Number 5, a grocer in Alaska has been making I'll restart. A grocer in Alaska has been making weekly 14-hour boat rides to a Costco in order to supply his town with groceries. Is that true? Is that the only way the town can get groceries is by 14-hour boat rides to Costco, or is that false apocalypse?
Ooh, see, you laid out there at the end that I thought was very interesting. Is this the only way? So that has me thinking that this is one of the ways, but not the only way. But then again, why would you take this route if there were other options? I think there'd be something easier. Now, this is a very heroic task this man is undertaking to do this. So I believe in good. I'm going to say yes. This is true. This is 2020.
He's got it. 2020. Guy named Toshiro Parker. He owns Icy Straight Wholesale and normally receives shipments from Costco, I guess, by Alaska's ferry system. I guess they get large imports through the ferry system. But that system's not running, obviously, because of the coronavirus. So he bought a 96-foot barge and took it upon himself. Goes down there 7 hours down, 7 hours back, makes the trip weekly to supply his town with groceries. Beseg, you did it, buddy. 3 out of 5. You're in the money right now. 3-way tie for second place. You are in. We can use those Uber Eats gift cards, get one, and support whatever local town you want. But hey, you did it, man.
Cool, man.
Down,
thank you, Hickey.
down 1-2. You came back.
How so? What happens? How many more people do you have coming on? And what happens if there's a tie? Or have you not gotten that far, and I'm putting you on the spot on your own show and doing a terrible job?
So I'll say this. I'm not sure. The tie, I'm going to plan on honoring whoever gets it. So if, God forbid, there's 10 people that tie for first and second place, I'm in a little bit of trouble here. So I'm going to try to honor my commitment and pay it out. When the game is going to end, I do not know. Part of it is content. I still have some, I have a running log, basically, of stuff that's happened. So really, I guess until that dries up or until people just don't want to play anymore, run out of friends to hit up, whatever comes first, probably the less amount of friends having. So we'll see. Yeah. But this game, there's really no open-ended ending. But thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate it.
You got it, Hickey. Thank you, brother.
Mike Biseglia, the great CBS Sports Radio producer, great host, creator of the Mike Delivers podcast. As you can see, if you are into food, it is a great podcast to listen to, and he is fighting against the man, pushing back against corporate America, and standing up for the little guy in his latest podcast that will be dropped tomorrow. So when we come back, Gary Washburn of the Boston Globe discuss the latest NBA return-to-play format, and Jaylen Brown going down doing a great service in Atlanta. We'll discuss all that with the Morning Boys Ryan Hickey return right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. It's time to wake up with the Morning Boys on Worldwide Sports Radio Network. And here's your host, Ryan Hickey.
And welcome back into the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Wrapping it up here as we finish at the top of the hour. Very excited to have our next guest on. Gary Washburn covers the NBA for the Boston Globe. National writer, covers the Celtics, covers the entire league. Very excited because earlier in the show we gave you the 4 options that Adam Silver and the NBA have narrowed down what a resume to play would look like. And now to discuss those options, what it looks like, what would be the most realistic, what is the best chance of getting a full playoff schedule in and keeping it fair. So we'll have Gary on to discuss all that. Gary, really appreciate the time. How are you this morning?
Very good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on and giving us a few minutes here, Gary. And obviously, I want to get to basketball here in a little bit, but obviously what's going on in our world these last few days and last week, obviously, is first and foremost. And so I'm curious, someone who lives in Boston, who is ingrained with the Celtics, Jaylen Brown going down to Atlanta, driving down from Boston to Atlanta. What was it like? What does it mean to see a player of his stature, an NBA player, drive down, go out of his way, not just use his platform, on social media to promote change and to promote and support the cause, but actually go down to Atlanta and be there, lockstep with the demonstrators in Atlanta in his hometown? What was it like to see? What does it mean for a player of his stature to not just, basically talk the talk, but to walk the walk?
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that, is not surprising for Jaylen. He's a very aware, very intelligent, astute guy in terms of his social awareness, social activity. He's a leader. He's a guy who definitely wants to set lead by example and set an example for younger people like himself to understand the world around them, the world that's not only Twitter and Instagram followers and social media, and who's looks great on the red carpet, or who has the new hit single out, and who's knows the latest dancer on TikTok, but knows that there's a world around them where some people aren't being treated fairly, some people are being murdered, killed, abused on a daily basis, and the world keeps kind of going. And so it doesn't surprise me that Jalen is a person who wants to let people know and set awareness and set by example that we need to do something about this, and we need to be a society that calls out action. That's about action, and that's about awareness and about fairness. So this doesn't surprise me at all. He's a very intelligent kid. He's already part of the Players Association in his fourth season. He's a guy who probably will one day be the union president, and lead his brethren, all 450 players eventually. So this doesn't surprise me at all. And I'm proud of him, given that he's only 23 years old.
Right, like you say, extremely young, and on social media he was putting out there that he doesn't have all the answers. He's very young, but he felt like his voice has to be heard. I also think it's very inspirational. I'm curious, have you talked to either, current Celtics players or other players across the NBA after seeing what Jalen did, like you said, going out there and actually being part of a change? Have you seen any other players maybe inspired to, instead of just, again, going on social media and tweeting and putting out there their support, actually taking some action? I saw Enes Kanter was out in the streets, I believe in Boston, if I'm not mistaken. So have you seen, or, at least have talked to any other players on the Celtics or otherwise the NBA that have taken action because they saw Jaylen Brown do what he did and take action as well?
Well, I don't know if they just because of Jalen, but I think there's certain players in this league that are very socially aware, and I don't think we pay enough attention to that. So there's been various players, obviously, on social media, but, if you look at someone like ex-NBA player Steven Jackson going up to Minneapolis for the press conference, Karl Anthony Towns, who literally recently just lost his mother to COVID-19. I mean, he could be under a cave right now in crying, and no one and everyone would understand. I mean, this is a guy who lost his mother before the age of 60 to COVID-19. He's a very young man, just lost his parent, and he was out there in Minneapolis offering support and at the press conference. So I think that there's more professional athletes, especially NBA players. These guys are young African-American men, most of them, obviously not all of them, are young African-American men who have probably had their issues with law enforcement one way or the other over their years. They've been stopped driving a nice car, or they've gone somewhere and had the police stereotype them, or, and honestly, too, they probably experienced their share of good cops. I mean, these guys, I think people forget, these guys also have security guards. These guys also have people who secure them who are former police officers. They know that there's good cops. I don't think anyone is saying that there's just 100% bad cops. A lot of these guys work the arenas. When they retire, they're former officers. They work team security. And so they know that there's good cops, but I think that a lot of these players understand that young African-American men especially, and there's women too, obviously, are being targeted, are being stereotyped, are being judged. I think we saw the incident with the woman in Central Park calling the police on a bird watcher.
Right.
I just think it's come to a head, and I think that if you're any type of have any type of awareness, you're gonna say something, and I think a lot of these players understand it's time to step up and say something.
So I'm curious with that then Gary, do you think it's, and obviously it's 2020 has been what it is, and obviously the corona, it's no positive, right, that the league has been shut down the way it is. But I'm curious, timing, right? Timing is almost everything sometimes. Now that there is no basketball currently, now that there really is no other distractions out there, is this almost, could you see change actually coming about and things actually happening in a positive way because now everyone can kind of put their focus on this. Like I said, you have players that if this was going on while the season was happening, Jaylen Brown isn't going to be able to go to Atlanta. You're going to have other players that aren't going to be able to put their voice out and put their focus on actually finding a cause and changing for the good because they have a season there. And this is the middle of playoffs. You have conference finals, the finals coming up, especially for a team like the Celtics who, you think will be in the playoffs in the long run here. I'm curious, is this almost, a nice chance that actually the message could actually stick because everyone can put their focus on the true issue at heart instead of getting distracted by sports or anything else if the coronavirus wasn't around?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, and ironically, that is probably true. That the fact that these guys aren't up to anything right now, they're just working out at their homes, or if their practice facilities are open, they're going to their practice facilities and working out individually, and they have time to. I mean, I think a lot of these guys have probably done a lot of different things over the last 3 months, whether it be study, maybe try to enroll in some classes or spend obviously extra time with family or take up a new hobby or do something different. Some of these guys, have different interests besides basketball. And I think for all of us, I mean, if you haven't done something different over the last 3 months, whether it be, have take up a new hobby or do something housewives or do something that you didn't get a chance to do over the last couple of years because you've been so busy with work. I think all of us have done something like that, or taken up a hobby or finished something that we had been long wanting to finish, or things like that, clean out your attic, whatever it is. I mean, so I think these players have definitely paid attention to the society. I think with the COVID, you can't help but see what's going on in the world. There's no more I'm young, this doesn't affect me stuff. Like this affects everybody. No one can go out, no one can work, no one can do things or except essential workers. So I think even the youngest people, high school kids aren't graduating the traditional way. There's no prom, so this has affected kids from everybody from 0 to 92, as the Christmas song says, right? So I think these players are now aware, and the fact that now they're not playing and they can see this and they can focus and they can talk to people, and they're not, basketball isn't their central figure in their life, the central activity. I think it does allow them to pay more attention and to be more socially active. Obviously, if this happened in the summer, they'd probably be out because it'd be off season. But I think there is something to the fact that they're not doing what they usually do, so they have time to put more focus on things that probably are important to them too.
So Gary Washburn, national NBA writer for the Boston Globe. Follow Gary on Twitter, at G Washburn Globe. So Gary, you just hit on it. This is the time, obviously, unfortunate that it is because of the coronavirus. We're all at home. We're picking up different hobbies, doing different things we normally wouldn't do. So what's the hobby in your life then that you've picked up that either you've worked on or that you had to distract you?
Wow, that's interesting. I was able to finish a book that I've been working on. Just spend time with family and friends. Do Zoom calls. Talk to people that I probably, honestly, would not have talked to otherwise, or you might have sent a quick text message to, and now you're sending them, you're contacting through Zoom calls. Just a lot of things, doing stuff around the house, things that you're like, okay, let me organize this, let me figure this one out. And you always say, well, I'll do it in the summer, and then the summer comes and you're traveling and you're out at the beach or you're doing your summer stuff. Then all of a sudden, here comes the fall and you start working again. Work picks up and you're like, okay, I'll do it next year. So I think this has allowed a lot of us to kind of, do things. I mean, I've never seen, and I know you're, young guy, Ryan, but when I was growing up, people jogged around the neighborhood. There was the gym wasn't as popular. People used to run at their local high schools, run around the blocks and stuff like that. Now I see that more than I have in 25 years. You see people unable to go to the gym and they just run the neighborhoods. To me, that's kind of refreshing to see people do things that, because we don't have the resources that we had, obviously 4 or 5 months ago. The world has been turned upside down. Um, and I think hopefully we learn something from this, and we keep some of those basic things that we've picked up and we don't take for granted. Um, the things like we don't take sports for granted. We don't take uh, being able to go outside and go for a nice walk or go to the grocery store, or go do things that we would usually do that we can't do right now or haven't able to do, or we're just starting to do again. Hopefully we don't take that for granted anymore.
You're so right, Gary. It is crazy. Like I said, even just the smallest things that used to be a drag or just something you dreaded doing. Now it's like, oh man, I would love to. Like I said, whether it's food shopping, maybe it's especially with your schedule, traveling with the team and kind of following them for the most part. Whether it's cross country flights or stuff like that, things that for the most part in any other circumstance we would dread. It's like, wow, sign me up for that. What I would do to have that happen tomorrow for sure. You're right. Hopefully we can take a lot of positives out of this. I think that's how we can all kind of move forward here in a good light whenever. Hopefully sooner or later we can get back to normal. So, Gary, I'm curious then, at least, part of that return to normal, part of kind of having some sort of normalcy return to life and kind of not taking sports for granted is sports returning, and that one of them is the NBA, which you are very familiar with. Late last week, we saw Adam Silver announce that there's basically 4 plans that have been narrowed down to resume the year. 16 teams basically go right to the playoffs, a 20-team group stage, 22 teams to fight for seeding in a playing tournament, or 30 teams, bring everyone back, have a truncated small regular season schedule, and then go from there. In your mind, of these 4 options, what's the best to resuming and having a champion?
The 20-team thing doesn't sound terrible to me. I'm not, it's difficult. No one's going to be happy with all this, okay? No one, not everybody. I'm not saying there's going to be people who are happy, and there's going to be people. I think what we're seeing now is that Commissioner Silver has been, without question, one of the more popular sports commissioners in commissioners in professional sports. He's made all the right decisions, starting with the Donald Sterling situation. The NBA is the most socially conscious league. The players love Commissioner Silver. There's really been no real issue between players and owners. I mean, we've got labor peace, the TV money's rolling in. All has been well under the Silver administration until now. And I'm not saying that it's going to blow up, but he's going to have to make a decision that's not going to be popular for everybody. If you invite all 30 teams, then there's 5 or 6 teams that don't want to play. If you invite 20 teams, the team that's already qualified for the playoffs, let's say the Memphis Grizzlies, are like, well, wait a minute, like we gotta turn around and try to compete for a spot that should be ours. Like, there's going to be no one that's going to be completely happy. Everyone's not going to be completely happy. So I tend to think that if you're Silver, you try to do the 20-team thing. You have your New Orleans, Portland, San Antonio, and Sacramento compete for that final spot along with Memphis. In the East, you got Orlando, who is 8th, Washington's 9th. They're 5.5 games back with 18-19 to play. That would be almost virtually impossible. I mean, the Magic would have to go through a 7-8 game losing streak. The Wizards would have to win 5-6 in a row. That just probably isn't going to happen. So I think you can leave Washington at home and you bring the Western teams there up to down to Orlando, and you let them fight it out, and you play 6 or 7, 8 regular season games, and therefore you have teams who are fighting for spots like, we still, Indiana and Miami are tied. So you figure that one out. Boston's a couple of games back from Toronto. Utah, Houston, Oklahoma City are kind of in a big, log jam in the West. So you have a lot of little things that need to be decided, and you try to decide that with those 8 regular season games. You figure out who's going to be the 8th team in the West, and then we just move to the playoffs, and you try to have a full playoffs. The one thing is, I think that you're probably going to have to play some back-to-backs There's no travel, so we're not talking about where you got to jump on the road like a traditional NBA back-to-back that most teams play. But you do not want to intersect this season with the NFL. Like you don't want week 2 of the NFL and the NBA playoffs to be coinciding. The NBA don't want to mess with the NFL. Like as much as the NFL is, quote unquote, lost its popularity, and there's some people upset with Goodell and all that, it's still the number one sport. And if the NFL kicks off on time, the NBA doesn't want to intersect with that deep into that season. So you want to finish this by early September. And so I think you try to rush the playoffs through August, and then, uh, a 7-game conference final, 7-game final series, and then try to end the season as best you can and try to figure out what to do with 2021.
So I'm curious. So, like you said, all right. So Gary, so from what I've read, and correct me if I'm wrong, the league is trying to resume in late July, early August, correct?
Yes.
So in your mind, you think the best way, basically have the month August, squeeze as much, whatever you have to do, whether it's a small regular season games to get seating correctly, and then squeeze the playoffs, like you said, back-to-backs, squeeze as much of it as possible, and the drop-dead date theoretically should be the week after Labor Day, right on Labor Day, to get out of the NFL's way, to get all the, the playoffs in on time?
I would say mid-September.
Okay.
You might have to go into like early October, but as you know, I mean, you're gonna have if baseball gets itself together and figures out what it wants to do, you're gonna have baseball then. You're gonna have college football. If they start, so it could be just. But that's what. That's probably what's gonna have to happen. Like somebody's gonna take a hit, like in this. Like ratings wise, it's gonna be the world for the sports fan is never going to be better. I mean, you're going to have MLS soccer. You're going to have all the sports. Maybe if the NHL lasts that long into September, you're going to have the NHL, NBA, college football, pro football, and Major League Baseball all going on at the same time. So pay your cable bill, get your sports channels all lined up. Because it's going to be a smorgasbord of sports. But if you're the NBA, you don't want to affect next season too much too. It's obvious next season's not going to start on October 20th or when it usually starts. I think we all know that it's going to probably start around Christmas time, the opening game, and they'll try to push it into July, August, September, or whatever. But you also next year have the Olympics. So when you have the Olympics that starts in July, you got to give Team USA a chance to warm up with NBA players. But if it's the playoffs, no NBA players going to play for Team USA. So do you end next season early? Do you have an abbreviated 66-game schedule for next season and cut next season short too? So the NBA's got a lot to do. But I think so for them, they want to end this season as quickly as possible. But you also want to have a full legitimate season. You don't want to have a 5-game series in the finals. You don't want to have anything where people say, that doesn't sound right. You want to have a full playoffs. Now you might cut one of the first round series to 5 games. We'll see. But you want to figure this out to where people consider the season legitimate, even if it's shortened.
So Gary Washburn, national NBA writer for the Boston Globe at G Washburn Globe on Twitter. So Gary, I'm curious. Do you like the idea of pushing the schedule back to where even if not just next year, but going forward, the season starts in December on Christmas Day, let's just say, and then ends in July? Do you like that schedule, or do you kind of like it the way it is now, middle of October, end it in early June with the finals? Which schedule do you think you prefer better for the NBA?
I am completely against starting the season on Christmas. I think that's ridiculous to me. I think that's I don't want to see NBA basketball spread into mid-August. I just think basketball is supposed to end the beginning of the summer. You have your summers off, and then you have baseball, and you have your training camp football. To see the NBA, and you have summer league basketball. To see the NBA spread all the way into August every year, to me, I just think is a bad idea. And I think that you always want your college basketball and your pro basketball to be going on at the same time. If you start, you literally would have a month and a half, almost 2 months of college basketball playing before the first NBA game. I just think there's something wrong with that. I think basketball is a fall/winter sport. I have no issues with it starting in late October and ending in late June. I think that's perfect. I think, and then you give August, September a break, and then you start up again with training camp in late September. I'm not sure, the whole Christmas opening day on Christmas, that sounds great, but I just think that's way too long to wait for basketball. And do you want to really see basketball in mid-August, the NBA Finals? Is that really what we want? Do we want basketball the first 8 months of the year? I don't know. I think it's fine as it is. I think that sometimes Silver is a very open-minded commissioner, but and he's open to new ideas. And I think there's a lot of these quote-unquote basketball experts and analytical people that love to toy with the game and want to change things. Some things, just leave it alone. I think late October to late June is fine for NBA season.
Gary, that's the perfect segue to the last question I want to ask you here. Like you said, Adam Silver is not afraid to change the format, not afraid to change and tinker with the game to try to make it more appealing, whether it's to the younger audience, to the fans, or just try to make it better for the overall game. So I'm curious, in your mind, does the NBA format, the NBA playoff format overall need to change, or do you like East West 1 through 8? And that's that, or do you think it should change to seeding 1 through 16, playing tour, all these different formats we have now possible? Do you like any of these ideas as a full-time playoff format, or do you like the way it is now?
No, I like the way it is now. I don't like the whole let's have West and East. I think that there are certain things that, just I said, sometimes you toy too much with. And, do you really want a Boston-Portland first round? Like, some of this is like, it sounds great on paper, it sounds great theoretically, but you don't want these teams zigzagging all over the country to try for playoff series, for first round series. And I think there's always something to be said for regional rivalries. That, to me, that's something that I think that definitely gets undervalued, is that having we look at Lakers, Kings in the 2000s, and now, Golden State, Houston recently, Cleveland, Boston. Like, you look at these tough regional Eastern Conference, Western Conference rivalries, and to me, that's what I think is undervalued here, is some of these great rivalries that are in the conference. And so, if you want to eliminate that, to me, leave the Eastern Conference champion, the Western Conference champion to fight it out in the finals. I think that's best. If sometimes the best two teams are in the same conference, well, that happens in every sport. That's just the way it is. We can't toy with everything to try to change it. I think that sometimes you just have to leave it as it is. I think it's fine.
You can read Gary on the Boston Globe. He does great work, not just for the Celtics, but also the NBA at G Washburn Globes, where you can follow him and find a lot of his work. Gary, really appreciate the time. Hopefully, stay safe, stay well, and hopefully we can talk some basketball soon and get some playoff games to discuss. Thanks so much for the time.
Sounds good, Ryan. Thank you.
Gary Washburn, again, the great NBA writer for the Boston Globe. Really do appreciate his time. And that will do it for this edition of the Morning Boys here on this Monday. We hope everyone is staying safe, everyone is staying sane. And obviously, we hope the calendar flip to June can inspire some hope, inspire some change here through 2020, through the first 5 months have done the complete opposite of that. But we hope you're staying well, staying safe. We'll talk to you on Thursday right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.